Should I hit got it? Okay, there we go.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the 100th episode celebration for the Heal, Thrive, Dream podcast. I have pom-poms from another event, so I'll just shake those really quick. And my guest that I did the 100th episode with is here today. We're doing just a quick celebration. We'll post this on YouTube, on Facebook, and all that. We both were technically challenged, but more so myself. So I apologize for that. So Judy, welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm honored to be here on the 100th anniversary. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. And so we want to talk about, well, first I want to do a dedication. So I want to dedicate the episode to my mom, who passed away on January 6th. Her burial is coming up this weekend. So this is dedicated to her. She was a trauma survivor. I also want to dedicate it to all the trauma survivors, globally that are struggling right now. Reach out to Judy, myself, any of the guests on the podcast that work with survivors. Please reach out and get support. But today we want to celebrate Judy as well. She has written a book and has published it. I encourage you to buy it. So Judy, tell us the name of the book again.
Okay, the name of the book is Let the More Loving One Be Me. I've taken that from a poem by W.H. Auden, and the full quote is, "If equal affection cannot be, let the more loving one be me." And I just thought that was very sweet. And let me just say, I'm really honored that you're using my broadcast with you today to honor your mother. I obviously don't know her, but I think it's a lovely thing that you're doing. And it is sort of honoring all the rest of us who have struggled with stuff. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. No, thank you for taking time out of your day to struggle and tech with me too. Yeah. So
that was not the
Judy,
fun part.
Yeah, Judy is a journalist, an author, and you used to work for, is it the Boston Herald?
No,
Boston
no,
Globe. Don't say the Herald.
That was a competition. That was a competition. It was the Boston Globe.
Oh, okay. So I think the Washington Post, I don't think it competes with the Times. I think it must compete with the New York.
The Post and the Times definitely compete, and the Globe is kind of not quite at that totally fabulous level, but we are a national newspaper and have been for a long time, and we concentrate on local stuff, but also, I was a medical writer for a number of years and the health columnist, and we considered ourselves in direct competition with the Post and the Times and the LA Times, because medical stories are really national in terms, the latest research and stuff, that's really a national story, not a local story. So we were sort of more or less in that category. We like to think.
Yeah, so you wrote about health topics. What was your favorite thing that you wrote about when you were working there?
Oh, I have to say the most meaningful story, and it was it was a special section. It became a really big deal at the Globe. It was about hospice care. And I actually followed a young woman who was 39 when I first met her, who was dying of breast cancer. She did so well in hospice, got so much support that she actually lived for 2 years. And in a way, she said that those were the best 2 years of her life. And I came away from that very inspired by her and her courage, and also very inspired by the hospice movement. When I wrote this, there was a lot of talk about doctor-assisted suicide and how people don't want to die in hospitals for good reason, because of all the impersonality and the bureaucracy. Dying at home in hospice was an incredibly moving thing for me to watch her do. Subsequently, my mother and my second husband died at home in hospice, and I don't think I could have been sort of emotionally present and helpful, I like to think helpful, in those two situations had I not been with the person I was following named Nora, and become to love her and the courage and the beauty, really, the beauty of hospice care. So I would have to say that was my most meaningful story that I feel like I ever did.
Hmm.
Although
Do you think it's because
this book that, you know, about, it's not just about trauma. I mean, it's sort of, that's what happened in my childhood, but I've since become a staunch supporter of free speech and journalism and the quest for truth, whether it's uncovering evil family secrets or politics or science. That's kind of been driving me ever since. So it's not just bad news. It's been very important for me to find both love and work, as Freud would say. Both things have been really important to me.
yeah. I was wondering if the hospice piece was so meaningful for you because of the connection between trauma and grief. Like you know what it is to experience loss, plus you also lost a partner.
Yes.
So do you think that
Yes.
was a piece of it too? Like you,
I think at that stage, you know, I hadn't really yet recognized the depth of the trauma that I had from my parents. So I'm not sure that's what it was, but what it did do, spending a lot of time with Nora, and there was a lot of joy in the hospice. I mean, we had fun. We went out to dinner, and she gathered a big group of people around her, and we partied sometimes. I mean, the reason we were there was sad, but it wasn't all doom and gloom, but it was meaningful, and it really, you know, in journalism, we talk about deadlines. You have to get your story in by 5 o'clock or it's not going to be in the next day's paper. But she had a real deadline in terms of death looming, but pausing to stop running around and being so busy and crazy was very meaningful. My time with her was, there was a serenity to it. And as well as, you know, lots of medication for her, and she did have pain, although she coped with it very well. And hospice does a great job of managing pain in most cases, I would say.
Mhm.
So it was a chance to stop and feel a meaningful connection as opposed to just charging through life full tilt, which tends to be my style.
I know, like I remember on our podcast episode, you talked about how athletic you are and how that's been you know, your self-care and your main coping over the years. It was great. Now you're a swimmer, is that right?
I am a swimmer, yes. And I think I told you before, I have written a book called Exercise is Medicine, which it really
Mhm.
is. I mean, everybody knows exercise is good for you, but I didn't know till I delved into it as a science writer precisely why at a molecular level it was so good. And I discovered, sorry, um, sorry about that. Um, I didn't realize exactly why it's so important. I love that book too. And that book, I have to keep exercising to keep up my street creds for that one.
Exactly. So I do have that book listed as well in the show notes when
Thank
people
you.
go to the episode to listen or watch on YouTube. It'll be in the show notes. All your books.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. So tell us, what happened that you're like, I need to write my book, my story now, my own memoir. Like, what happened that seed got planted for you?
Well, I'm in this really nice organization for people in their 50s and beyond, called the Harvard Institute for Learning and Retirement. It's one of these lifelong learning things based at universities. And I was lucky enough to join that group. And I decided to sign up for a memoir class, a memoir writing class that was taught at the time by a terrific woman who had a theater background and a writing background and a singing background. She was terrific. I now teach the class myself. I've kind of inherited that mantle. But when I was in her class, I just sat down and wrote the memoir that is the lead story in my book, Let the More Loving One Be Me. And it was about my father's abuse. And I have since rewritten and tweaked that story, but basically it came out as a coherent whole. And it was about the abuse. And I know many people, many of the survivors who are probably listening to you right now have experienced far worse things, but this was kind of like psychological rape. He used to, would you like me to tell this briefly?
Just really briefly, yeah.
Okay, he used to, when I was a teenager, come into my room every night with just a t-shirt on. And he didn't come in the door, but he would stand there and I could see him in great detail. And I thought he was going to come all the way in and rape me. So that happened throughout my whole adolescence until I went to college. So it was kind of like a psychological rape, and I never knew when it was going to be the real thing. So I basically grew up terrified of him.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah,
And no one can really judge or know like what's worse, honestly.
right. That's right. Psychological
Yeah.
damage is real damage.
Hmm.
It
Yeah.
definitely is.
Yeah. And it's just beyond comprehension on why he would feel that that would be okay, you know?
I know. I
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. And I'm really happy that you told your story because other women, I have women all the time I work with, and men, like they'll say to me, I don't know if what happened to me is trauma. One of the things I say is like, well, if you're asking, that's a pretty big indicator
Uh,
that you have some feelings about what happened. And,
Yes.
if it hurts you or alarmed you in any kind of way, then yes, that's
Yeah.
trauma.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah. Yeah. So oh, wait, one question. Your writing class that you teach, is it only in person or is it virtual too?
Well, it was in person till COVID, and then we switched to Zoom. But I've been finding that Zoom actually works very well. The way the
Hmm.
class works is there's usually 10 or 12 people in it. I like it if it's closer to 10. And each person writes a memoir every week and sends it to everybody else. And each person reads all the memoirs and makes comments. And then on Zoom, we talk about each person's memoir of that week. And then we send the comments as well. So it's a lot of work for people because they write a memoir every week and then they read 10 memoirs and comment
That
on them.
is a lot of work.
But it's a wonderful class. I mean, people, there was one class when I think there were 6 women in the class, 6 or 8 women in the class, and all but 2 had been sexually abused. And they, it's this problem is much more widespread than people think.
Because we
Um,
don't talk about it.
People
Right?
don't report it, people don't talk about it, people don't often even recognize what it is. I didn't know, I didn't have words for it. It was, for my situation, was just normal. That's what happened every night to me. How did I know that was not normal? What
Right.
you grow up with is normal, no matter how weird it actually is. Um, so anyway, the memoir class is great. People learn to really trust each other. It's confidential. What people write and say doesn't get beyond the group, and it's wonderful to watch how the trust develops in the group. It's a little like a therapy group, except there's a lot of funny memoirs and interesting memoirs. It's not just about childhood stuff. People write about their work, their family, their kids. It's the high point of my week, teaching that class.
And that's awesome. I think
Yeah,
it's
it's great. I
amazing.
love it.
Yeah. I would love to come. Like,
I
do I
wish you
have to
could.
apply to go do I have to apply to Harvard to get in?
You do, you do, but you might get in. And I still do it by Zoom, so.
Um, yeah, that feels like too big of a commitment at this point.
It is,
Maybe later.
people really, it takes a bunch of time every week. It
Well,
really
just the whole
does.
application process alone.
That too.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's amazing that you do that. And
Oh,
you are so humble, Judy, for having being, someone who's attended Harvard and now you teach at Harvard. How come you're so humble? How come has it got into your head?
Boy, I've never been asked that.
Well, you know some narcissist professors at Harvard, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah, but the Harvard, I have to say, the Harvard Institute for Learning and Retirement, you do have to apply and you do have to get in, but I'm not on the Harvard faculty. I'm not a faculty member. I'm sort of,
Right.
in fact, the whole model of the retirement thing is you apply and you get in, then all the members teach each other whatever they want to teach about. So I could be teaching scuba diving if I thought I was qualified, or I don't know, Zen Buddhism or something. You teach about what you're interested in and what you've learned about, and we teach each other. So I could have someone in my
Okay.
memoir class and then take that person's class. So it's
I see.
yeah, it's a
So it's
nice
not
sort of.
such a, it's not a pretentious group then.
Oh, I wouldn't go that far. Definitely would not go that
Okay. Well, I think you're humble for the things
far.
that
Thank
you've
you.
accomplished. Like, tell us about your credentials around being a journalist. Like, aren't you famous or have a lot of awards or something like that?
I do have a lot of, I think last time I counted it was about 50 journalism awards. Some good ones, some small ones. Yeah, I mean, journalism has been my calling. It's been, I sort of can't stop writing, even though I'm not really writing for the Globe now. I've written 5 books and I never thought I would do that. I mean, it's just, it's my thing, I guess. And I do feel driven by telling the truth. And also, I mean, for me, journalism was a wonderful profession because I'm an extrovert and I love talking to people. And I stumble upon stories by talking to people sort of without even trying. I mean, if you talk to people, you come back with a story. You get all these people's stories. So it's been a very good fit between my personality and the actual job. And that's very lucky. I think a lot of people never quite find the work that comes from their soul or is a good match for their personality. I mean, a lot of people I think are in sort of the wrong job, or they're in a job just for the money, which a lot of people have no choice. They have to do that. But
Right.
it's very lucky to be able to follow, as the saying goes, to follow your bliss and get paid. You don't get paid great as a newspaper journalist, I will tell you that, but you can live on it. And it's so worthwhile to have work that's meaningful. I feel very, very lucky with that.
Well, I think I know the answer, but I want to ask anyway. I'm just trying to figure out the right way. Telling the truth,
Yeah,
byproduct of your childhood.
I think so, sort of unconsciously.
Hmm. Yep.
And when you work for a big news organization like the Boston Globe, you get paid to tell the truth and to find out the truth. And the truth is tricky, it's slippery. And often there are multiple truths, and that gets complicated. Particularly around controversial things like abortion. The truth for me is that no one has the right to tell me what to do with my body. I feel passionate about that. But if
Mhm.
I'm writing a story about abortion, I have to fairly quote people who feel differently. I mean, I can't not talk to them. If they're part of the story, I have to say their point of view, even
Right.
though it's flagrantly different from mine. So the truth is tricky. It's very
It
tricky.
is tricky, because the people who do believe abortion should not be a choice, they really, really believe that. They really are. I,
Or do they? I mean, it
yeah,
seems
well, I think,
true. But it does. The thing where I just differ from them is that it doesn't have to be their choice, but they don't have the right to make my choice.
Yeah, I feel like it's a lack of information on their part too. You
Yes,
hear like Republican congressmen don't believe in abortion until their teenage daughter's pregnant, right?
right,
And oh,
exactly.
this is
That's what I
different.
meant
This
by
is different.
political. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. So it really is a personal decision.
I
The whole
totally agree.
thing is hard and tricky.
Uh,
Yeah.
it is hard.
Yeah.
And maybe I shouldn't have brought it up, but
No, no, it's totally fine. I think mm, I grew up believing abortion is and was terrible and should never be done, to being a social worker and therapist that has worked with people that have been raped by their parents and horrifically abused and gotten pregnant by their fathers, and their lives are hell.
right.
So yeah,
But
I just,
even
it's not
even
my place to decide.
even short of that, yeah, it's no one else's choice but mine. Um, and that's got to be the driving force. But I'm sure some of your listeners might feel differently.
Mhm.
Um, but anyway,
Well, yeah, it surprises me though sometimes when but anyway, it's not like we're saying, oh, everybody should go run and get abortions because that's fun.
no,
No.
it's sort of a last resort. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
no one
It's
wants that.
desperate measure for
Right.
a woman
Yeah.
who's desperate. Yeah,
Right. Right.
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. Okay,
Exactly.
let's change topics though so we can wrap up.
Sure.
So, okay, so you are a survivor and you didn't let your family dysfunction, abuse, trauma, drama stop you from being successful. So, if there's a woman listening who feels like she couldn't possibly be successful with everything that she's experienced, like what kind of inspiration can you provide them?
I would say go to therapy and hang in. It's long and hard and way too expensive for a lot of people, but deal with the feelings. And boy, is that hard. Boy, is that hard. And
Mhm.
but it takes support. It takes and wise support. I think it takes a skilled therapist to help people with abuse and trauma. And trauma takes many forms. It's not just sexual abuse. Trauma can be um, talked to a person this morning who just finished the book, and he was practically sobbing on the phone when he called me, and he said, my father on his deathbed told me I would never amount to anything. That's trauma. Um, and you have to
Yeah,
take
it is.
those feelings seriously. I mean, what on earth why? What was that? What was going on? I mean, and not everyone has that kind of trauma. I think some people really do grow up in relatively healthy, loving households where people laugh and really enjoy each other. That was not me. That was not my situation. But it isn't only sexual abuse is my question. I mean, a lot of people grow up in
Yeah.
alcoholic families.
Mhm.
That's destructive. And this poor guy whose father said, you'll never amount to anything. That's trauma too. Um, that's definitely
Yeah.
trauma.
Words do cut big time.
Words
Yeah.
and feelings do cut too as well. Um,
Mhm. Yeah. Ooh.
ooh.
So it's hard to celebrate 100th episode for a show about trauma, So my plug in is if we can find ways to make healing creative and bring joy into our decisions to heal, to be better versions of ourselves. It can be creativity, it can be play. Survivors sometimes really struggle with that. Like we tend to be workaholics, all or nothing thinkers, perfectionist, amongst a lot of other symptoms. So it's important to laugh, important to look at your strengths and your talents and like, okay, ask yourself, what's one thing I can do today to be better, to be stronger, to heal myself. And I want to say, Judy, I appreciate you being here to celebrate 100 with us.
Good for
It's
you.
an honor. It's an honor to have you on the show.
It's an
And
honor
so
to be on your
everyone,
show.
thank you. Everyone listen or watch the episode.